Members of the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska have rejected an effort to recall Tribal Chairman Jeff Gilpin.
Results of today's special recall election show 56% of voters said no to the question, shall Chairman Jeff Gilpin be recalled? Opponents of Gilpin's chairmanship said he tried to remove department heads, including the chief judge, and tried to install his own chief of tribal operations and chief of police without a tribal council vote. But Gilpin's supporters say the suspension and the recall of the chairman is all retaliation.